Okay, this is a response video to a very good video by Anti-Bullshit Man on the subject of assisted suicide, the right to die, however we're going to phrase it, euthanasia, the right for individual human beings to invest their own welfare in their own judgment, and when society has a right to disqualify that right, that fundamental right to have your own perception and be entitled to your own perception of reality. So in the first case, it's obviously not. This does not implicate society protecting itself. Okay, this is society imposing its judgment, saying it knows what's best for another individual, not what's best for itself, what's best for another human being. And deciding that it has some qualification to make this judgment, to say, if you're not full of enough desire, if you have insufficient desire and need to live, if you have some ambition, you don't have enough ambition, and you're not obsessed with achieving some kind of superficial, ludicrous goal, that, yeah, you're too depressed, you're too despondent, you're too disconnected from the addiction, you've lost interest in the heroin, and therefore society must impose and inject in you a perspective through chemistry or whatever means that'll get you back in the chase, back in the game again. And that's really all this is about. People do not... it's very rare that people have a depression disorder that is innate. That they have some sort of negative perspective from nowhere, that has no causation, and it's almost silly for us to sit there and say that, okay, somebody has a different perspective, they want a different thing, they want different things, and because of those differences they have less, their focus is more on a certain quality of life or a certain expectation for what is called dignity or grace, and they just won't accept living in the same cesspool that you will live in. Might be the way to describe it. I mean, you'll accept a certain amount of turds and urine and smell and stench, and maybe somebody else has, values that just say, no, I'm not going to step in that shit. All right, you can wallow in it if you wish, but I won't. There's no way to have this discussion about where you draw this line of who's qualified. The qualification should exist with all people, and only in the most extreme case where somebody doesn't even know what planet they're on, where they can't describe the most basic of relevant facts of existence. They don't even know what the word depression means. Maybe if they can't even define the word, then maybe you can have a right to disqualify that person's judgment. But otherwise, you have no business imposing this cultural norm, this silly expectation that we all should be the same kind of cockroach or maggot, and we all should feed the same way, in the same pattern, be part of the school of fish, and do your fish thing, and like it. Because it can be turned. There's no empirical philosophy here. There's no, and if there is, it is completely on the opposite side of the argument. Culture can be made to look ludicrous on this subject. What is the assumption? The assumption is that life is good. No matter how crappy it is, it's good. That's the foolish, insane, ludicrous premise that this cultural prohibition is based on. And we know where it comes from. We know where the substance of the energy for this fear of death comes from. It comes from these religious crazies, okay, with their silly notions, their insane fables, where they wish for an eternal life that doesn't even have a description. Okay, their fundamental philosophy says, yes, you will live eternally, and yet it doesn't describe what they will be doing with this eternal life. What exactly do they do with it? What do they do forever and ever in the ethereal plane? And they can't even describe it because they know if they even try, if they did describe it, most people would say, well, I don't want to be doing that forever. Because everybody has a very diverse taste for life, a very, very different sense of what makes it worth it. Why is the game worth playing? And some people, the game is just all about the ego, all about success, all about being bigger man or more successful or having more stuff. And for another person, it might be just a few glorious moments, a perfect sunset with the perfect companion, or some other little thing, and they'll say, yes, those cherished little pieces of life are enough to make the game worth playing. But everybody's going to have a different equation. Some people will love their work. Some people will despise their work. Some people will emotionally need nothing. Other people will emotionally need everything. It's just ludicrous to sit there and impose that there's going to be some thing we're going to call normative, and say you must have at least this much desire to live, or else we will not respect your consciousness, not respect the dignity of your intelligence. We will disable it. We will force you to comply to what we have established as the truth when it comes to life being a good. And if that truth is deconstructed, it is found to exist, to be founded on nothing. The premise that nature knows what it's doing, the premise that somehow being a desire machine is an accomplishment, that surviving as the molecule demands is an accomplishment, that being a successful heroin addict is the game. And yeah, if you're not chasing the heroin, you're broken, you're sick. We got to inject more desire into you, but you don't have enough desire. That's really all depression is, isn't it? It's just a lack of motivation, a lack of desire. Not enough hunger. I mean, when hunger abates, that's what you're left with, is a despondency, is an emptiness. It is perhaps the rational state of being, is perhaps the only way a captive animal could possibly perceive its existence, if it truly understands its existence. You can't help but be demotivated by the realization that you're chasing something that doesn't exist, a satisfaction you can never gain, you can never control, you can never own. You can understand that it's an insidious game, and just to declare that people can't invest in that understanding is stupid. Okay, so let's get to I'll get 2 minutes left fast. Look, it's really easy. Okay, we can create a mechanism that makes it pretty much fail-safe. Okay, you can give people a living will. Okay, a right to declare their intent for their life, and first let them declare it when, say, they're 16 years old, but they can't act on it. Okay, until they're a later date, and then they verify it at 18, and then maybe at the age of 21 you give them the right at any future time to act on their stated ideology that they believe in a complete and free right to invest their life in their judgment, and if they feel life has lost its meaning to them, that they have a right to freely act on that using all available technology, medical technology, to do it as gracefully as possible. Alright, so then you have 4 years where you can attempt to indoctrinate them into another philosophy. You could have obligatory courses they must take, or tests they must pass to relieve yourselves of the burden of thinking that you are superiorly informed and more intelligent and more knowledgeable of what a depression is. And then they can just basically prove you to be the asshole that you are, and establish their right to be respected as a human being, and not to have assholes with your superficial, mushy fantasy philosophies telling them what they have to appreciate, what they have to think is worth enduring, what they have to think is worth accepting in a degraded and undignified and imperfect existence, one created by you slobs, okay, you pigs, you gluttons, you selfish pricks. You've created a world of shit. Everybody should be despondent over the shit you have created. You disgusting, putrid piles of crap. And then you have the arrogance to sit up on some pedestal and establish that your perception of what a human being should be, what kind of cockroach we should be, what kind of chasing bug we should be. Fuck you, all right? But don't sit there and use this lie that you are protecting somebody. You're not protecting anybody. You just don't want anybody to have a right you can't exercise because you've closed off your possibility with your narrow-minded philosophy, your goddamn investment in your fantasies, your fables of eternal life in paradise. You silly assholes. So fuck you people. Enough of a video.